Good afternoon, students. This is the Children's Literature and Reading Support content presentation for you for 2017 for the exam. A welcome note to you all. I'm Mrs. Richter, your tutor for Children's Literature and Reading Support. May you be fully equipped with this presentation as you prepare yourself for this examination. You can contact me between 6 and 100 hours if you still have any queries. You may even send an SMS or an email and I will get back to you. Now, with this presentation, we will discuss the most important content summarized to give you an overview. You can compile your own summaries but elaborate more to understand the questions or the concepts. An important hint. Please note, marks are an indication of how many facts you must write. If the question is out of 20, make sure that you write 20 facts more or less, unless it's the verb is discuss or identify or analyze, then you need to know that you give 15 facts and then you can have 5 for the applying of the content. Then students, please, you are tending to misunderstand the either of. I want to emphasize this today because it will be in the question paper. If a question has an option to do, you either do the A or the B section. It depends on if it's a 1.1 or 1.2. Please, you may only choose one to do. For example, an example would look exactly like this. Say, for instance, we are at question 4, or it can be question 1, 2, or 3. I just took question 4 that you can just see. Here you answer 4 questions. In this question paper, you answer question 1, 2, and 3. It's compulsory, but there are options within question 4. Question 4 will state in brackets, answer either one of the options. I highlighted that with the blue that you can see. You must either do 4.1 or 4.2. Students tend to do both, but please, you will only get marks for the one if you misunderstood the concept of 4.1 and you explain that and write everything down, maybe just for 5 marks, and you did better in 4.2, that you can maybe have full marks. I will only mark the first one, 4.1. So please take note of this. Marks are indicated in brackets. If a question is asked, always look at the marks indicated in brackets, normally at the back of the question. For instance, what is visual discrimination? It counts only 5 marks. Then you must just give 5 facts. Compare the difference between 2 specific, I can give you concepts, like speed reading techniques. You must compare a list of facts. Make sure you can identify the difference between the 2 concepts. It's really important that you do understand what is asked of you. Then, with our content, I will ask now, for instance, what is visual discrimination? In short, I said it's the ability to see the subtle differences between 2 objects or pictures. Normally, if you look in the magazines, you will see there are 2 pictures that you need to compare, and then you must see which ones are missing on the one picture. This is exactly the same. You must be able to see the differences or to see what matches up. Paying attention to detail, because sometimes it can be small things, but you must really look at the picture to really identify the differences or the similarities. It gives a child the ability to identify if something belongs or does not belong. Now, I want to emphasize this question also. Identify 5 problems, not activities, problems which could be caused by an underdeveloped visual discrimination skill. Not able to correct the errors in schoolwork, a problem in dressing himself or matching socks, even to button his shirt or unbutton it, discriminating between the size of letters and objects, then struggle to see the differences between the letters B and D, distinguish similarities and differences in letter formation. For instance, I just want to show you here. If he draws, normally we draw C from left turn around, and he will make his the other way around. Matching 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, such as alphabet letters. Now let's look at visual discrimination activities. and activities that you give some child to do and that he can enhance or practice the skill of visual discrimination. For instance, if you use shape, you show the shape and encourage the learner to copy it or in a sequence formation. I can quickly just explain again. A circle, a triangle, a rectangle, or then you must be able to do that same format again. Circle, triangle, a rectangle. Okay. Then, a game. You can even play games. Play the game what's different. For instance, in a picture or outside, it doesn't matter where. Toys. You can use toys for a stacking up, those little blocks that you can stack. Or you can promote pattern recognition. It's similar to this that I explained now. This will help the child to identify the differences there. Matching 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, such as alphabet letters or even shapes again here, the 2-dimensional and the 3-dimensional. Now, we will look at the comparison between the different speed reading techniques, skimming and scanning. Remember, we must know the difference between them. Skimming is a method of rapidly moving the eyes over the text with the purpose of getting only the main ideas and a general overview of the content. It is useful for pre-reading. Skimming is a more thorough technique, and it gives a more accurate picture of the text to be read later on. Reviewing is also part of skimming. Skimming is useful for reviewing text that has already been read. Skimming and scanning, we will continue with this now. The reading of skimming is mostly used for, quickly reading things. If you just want to quickly see some information. You read material where it does not need to be detailed. Steps, you read the title, read the introduction, you read the first paragraph completely through. Then, if there is any subheadings, you can read each one. Read the first sentence of each one of the subheadings, remaining paragraphs also, just to get a general overview. Scanning, steps in scanning. Scanning rapidly covers a great deal of information. You must know what you are looking for. Anticipate in what form the information is to appear. Analyze the organization of the content, and then before you start to scan. If material is lengthy, you can skip lines until you find what you are looking for. It can be a date, or it can be a fact, something important. Now, we will look at identifying the necessary elements of a story. Any story must have the following elements: a setting, the time and the location, the plot, the sequence of events, then the 5 essential parts: introduction, the action, the climax, the action, the final outcome, and then we know the conflict, the essential plot. If there's not a conflict, no plot, then it's not a total story. Then it will be a dominant struggle. Stories must have characters, a person in a work, or it can be a fictional character. The point of view, perspective from which story is told, the eye and your mind. There must be a theme, underlying meaning or a significance, sharing truth by the author. Then normally we know some books have a lot of illustrations, especially for the little ones. It is very important as the text and should appeal to children to the aesthetic appreciation. Now we will identify and analyze in detail each component of powerful instruction of effective teaching for learners with reading difficulties. Remember, this question is very lengthy, but you can summarize it and just make a little short plot for you that you can know how to study this. Identify and analyze. We must also know the verbs, what is expected of you there. Now let's look at the question. teaching of essential skills and strategies. The effective reading teachers will teach skills, strategies, and concepts. Make sure you also know what is a skill and a strategy. Reading should address the domains of phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Now I just dot this in for you also, it's very important. Skills are things learners must learn to do. Strategies are routines or plans of action to reach your goal. Then learners learn concepts or ideas based on background knowledge. Provided differentiated instruction based on assessment results and adapt instruction to meet learners' needs. This is the subheading underneath this long question. Effective teachers recognize that one size doesn't fit all. I mean, children are different and you can't teach the same method the whole time. You must also differentiate, maybe explain more. To this one you can just give a main word and the child will be able to know what to do, but in other kids need different, more explanatory methods. Now, effective teachers recognize that and that one size doesn't fit all and are ready to adapt to instruction by concepts and methods, and the content definitely. Meeting the needs of diverse readers is difficult but very necessary. Teachers provide differentiated instructions and diagnostic assessments to help identify learners' strengths and needs. Remember, this can also be their weaknesses, that you can see where can I really see to support the learners in their reading. The next heading, provide explicit and systematic instruction with lots of practices and without teacher support and feedback, including cumulative practices over time. Learners should not have to infer what they are supposed to learn. Learners with reading problems benefit from explicit instruction in decoding skills and strategies. If you can tell them, this is the plan, this is what we want to do, this is our goal, they will know, this is what I must reach. That is what I meant there. Learners with learning problems will benefit with this explicit instruction. By these strategies, a teacher demonstrates skills and strategies to give clear descriptions of all the new concepts. The learner eventually will apply the skill to be used independently. Confused learners are more successful by teachers' demonstrations and clear explanations. I mean, if you talk the whole time, they won't understand, but if you explain with them and demonstrate, I mean, that will be much better understandable for them if you, instead of just talking the whole time. Then remember, the more senses you use, the better. If confusion are not addressed and foundational skills are not mastered, it will lead to serious reading problems. Provide opportunities to apply these skills and strategies in reading and writing meaningful text with teacher support. If I think now quickly of an example, I can think, make it interesting. Let them build their strategy or story on a little hamburger. That you have the bun, the meat, the letters, and you write the plot, the plan, the characters, everything on that little hamburger. And you can even let them do, physically in class, let them make their own hamburgers on a Friday or something like that, just for an example. Now, systematic instruction is carefully sequenced from easy to difficult skills. Learners need to be taught what to do when they get to a hard or difficult word. That is where I said again with the hamburger, they know the bun is this, that they know which step to take then for the next time. The pace of introduction of new material and the lesson consist of practice of previously introduced skills, strategies and concepts. Like I said, kids will always go back on what they know. If they have done it now with the hamburger, next time they will be better because they have adapted the skill, they know what to do to go to the next step or plan of action. Now the real purpose here is to get meaning from text, and the purpose of writing is then to convey the meaning with text. Monitoring learners, learning to evaluate if reteaching is necessary. Don't be ashamed. Reteaching just means to go over it again and emphasize again the most important aspects that the child did not grasp or understand. Don't just cover the critical content, be sure the learners learn it and monitor your learners' progress regularly and reteach if necessary. Again, the reteaching is emphasized there. Effective teachers adjust their teaching according to your learner or to try to accelerate the learner's progress. Schools use reading assessments to monitor learners. Progress monitoring assessments indicate if a learner makes progress or not with quality classroom reading instruction only. So if I have quality things in my class, I will have quality reading. For instance, your class rules can be up on the wall. The kids will read that. Small group reading intervention to ensure that all readers are implemented. If you let them sit in little groups, you can make sure that number 1 up to number 5 will read, for example. If they sit in a whole class group and you say read, there will be 6 or 7 kids that, I won't read. You know, we are all human. It's like students also. Some will listen today and some won't. Make progress with quality classroom reading instruction only. Small group reading intervention is important to ensure that all readers can take part and that all reading will be implemented. Now we will look at a study case. If I ask you a study case, you must know what to do to motivate a child. We will read the following cases of the 2 primary school learners. It's 2 cases that come up to us. We must encourage these children with intrinsic motivation. I will also make that clear that you know what is extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Now, let's look at the one child. Andy is in grade 2. He's only 8 years old. He is easily distracted from learning and has a very short attention span. He struggles to apply the new reading skills. He needs repetition before a skill makes any sense even to him. He becomes frustrated and feels like an outcast. Now remember, put this in the back of your mind. Let's look at our other study case. Pendukeni is 8 years and in grade 2. She resides in an urban neighborhood. She puts a great deal into her schoolwork and absorbs all skills very easily, but she struggles with reading and gets discouraged quickly, and then she's giving up. Now the learners, both of them, need short lesson sessions, 15 to 20 minutes, just enough time to enjoy and read aloud time. There must be time to discuss the story after you have read it. Choose the storybook that responds to his interest or her interest and experience. Humorous and predictable books are very successful, and kids enjoy these types of books, especially they would like to say, no, I think this is going to happen, or they would like to tell you the story. The reading material must be relevant to the learner. You cannot give reading material to kids that struggle, grade 3 work to a grade 2 child, for instance. If your grade 2 child struggle, rather give grade 1 work that they can rather understand what they read and enjoy what they read. Now, learners will then be more likely to engage and they will become competent readers. Activate the background knowledge of your learner. Encourage predictions by asking learners, what do you think will happen next? Ask the question. Follow the reading text up by drawing. They can draw a picture and role play, for instance. They will enjoy that, and some of them will even write words that they can remember or be able to write. Teachers must implement practices in the classroom to support internal motivation. Remember, it's not giving them money or giving them chippies or anything. That is extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic means it comes from themselves, from inside, the inner self. Like having fun activities and hands-on science books and things in class to do. Now, we will look at the preparatory writing activities. You must be able to explain this and discuss each skill on how you will develop that. Now let's look at the clay button fastening. Why do we play with clay, button up shirts, and fastening with Velcro our shoes or lace up? That is good for the fine hand muscle development for paging and writing. Remember, you must use your fingers. I'm showing you the 3-point, and to page later on. Pattern making. If a child makes a pattern, you can give them, for instance, a shoelace, and they must, say for instance, put in a bubble, a purple, a blue, a green. That's also part of sequencing. But you can also let them write and do the patterns, like we said, the little horse galloping up and down. Now, the pattern helps them to move from left to right and to be able to read. Remember, we all read from left to right. Then cutting and tearing, that is for the fine hand muscle. When you give them colored paper or newspaper, or you take from the magazine, they tear it in fine pieces, and then they must paste the outline of a duck or something, like any picture like that, or an ice cream. It depends on your theme. Now, left to right also has to do with the letters that are forming. Remember, we start from left to right to form. I'm just going through this again, and cutting and tearing, fine motoric again with your hands for paging. Now, we will also look into the coloring and painting. It's very important that the preparatory writing activities will consist of this, because this is also for the fine hand muscle development for paging. You will see a lot of them is for paging and writing. Now, to copy a picture or posture or holding the crayon, the right posture for sitting up straight, and the habits, you must taught the kids. Always sit up straight, don't lay on your arms. You must have the correct posture. Then, threading beads, develop your fine hand muscle to page books. You can see how important this activity is. Hold the pencil and to write, the proper pencil grip. You can only do that by threading the beads. We will look up to identifying the psychological needs. Literature can satisfy in pre-primary children. Make use of subheadings to help you with this question. A need for security. Identify with the story experience as if it happened to him or her. A need for knowledge. Not just listens to story, but also a variety of types of information. Then emotional security. It relates to friendships and belonging to a group, to fit in a story. A need for escape, relaxation and humor. Forget a moment of problems. Sometimes we all tend to forget why is it necessary, these psychological needs, but they are. Now you can see them. As I've said again, I just shortly summarized this for you. Now, for spiritual and moral security, the security is experienced learning right and wrong, a need for appreciation of aesthetic materials, good literature, well-written prose and illustrations. Then the understanding the self and others, character development, to learn how to be a good friend to anyone, boys or girl, striving towards success, to do something worthwhile and to mean something to someone. That is for later on, if they want to accelerate, becomes a class captain or a leader, or in future, we will never know, maybe the future president. Fantasy, creative ideas invented by characters. Now we will also look at children need to develop and maintain to read. How can I do that? And how can I discuss on this? You must be able to have a critical discussion. Reading must be viewed as a social act, like sharing with peers. If not, the child will not learn new words or any vocabulary. He or she must be able to appreciate the pleasures of reading. Children must be comfortable with a variety of different forms and genres. See to it that a reading is rather an opportunity to explore their interests. Read widely for a variety of purposes so that they can enjoy that. Remember, reading must be enjoyable, otherwise they won't read. Now, the minute it's enjoyable, they will learn more, but we can also read for the fact to gather information. However, if reading is not based on life experiences, pleasurable or fulfilling, learners won't choose to read, leading to another negative effect of not enough practices, and they won't become fluent readers then. Remember, reading is an active process of constructing meaning. Now, we will describe the psychological needs literature can satisfy in the pre-primary children. Remember their needs now. We make use of subheadings to help with the question, a need for security. Identify with a story, for experiences as if it happened to him or her. A need for knowledge. Not just to listen to stories, but also a variety of types of information. There are different kinds of books. Emotional security, they relate to friendship and belonging to a group, to fit to a certain group or to fit in a story. And a need to escape. And again, the spiritual and moral security. I'm going to just quickly go over it that you can just see that. And the need for appreciation of the aesthetic materials. Again, understanding the striving towards success. Fantasy, creative ideas invented by characters. Now, I quickly want to discuss the sustained silent reading. You can also refer to this as the SSR method, in short, for sustained silent reading. It's a school-based recreational reading. It is free, voluntary reading, designated to time, a period in the school hours, can be any time. An assumption is that learners will learn to read by reading constantly. Remember, the teacher must also read them. It has successful models and allow the learners to select their own books. And please, it do not require testing of books or any book report nor comprehension. It was shown to create a reading habit. This is a very nice method. And remember, as I've said, everybody chooses what he or she wants to read, and even the teacher. Now, next up, we will look at the standardized reading ability test, what it entails. And we will discuss critically how useful these tests are. Remember, we have a certain method to see what is the child's level. Can he cope, he or she? And this is part of it. What a standardized test requires, it requires all test takers to answer the same questions. It is mostly set in the same way and scored in a standard or a consistent manner. So in other words, the whole group will sit, they will write the same test, you start at the same time. It's like an exam setting, but say for instance, only the grade 6 groups of the school will be tested yearly. Now, these tests make it possible to compare the relative performance of individuals or groups of learners. Standardized reading test is problematic because the test findings are often inconsistent. It can be varying up by several years. They take the same test over and over and over to test the grade 6 groups. And remember, nowadays the background of all the kids are different, due to the fact that these tests are also not straightforward. We will mention this. It's very important that you take note of that. The question arises, what is actually being measured with these tests and the arbitrarily selected words? So, in fact, we must make sure that you know how to explain why this test are not useful or are useful. Sometimes good to always go look into a certain aspect and go and make a study for yourself and see the if I can say quickly, the pros and the cons, the positive and the negatives. Now, with this, I would say good luck for you with this examination. Please, if you look at this content-based class that we had now, if you summarize, you will really be able to do good in the exam. I just made short cryptical notes. I can even shorten my studies. If I made the summary, you can have keywords, highlight it, and then study the keywords. Make a little rhyme, because I know the subject is quite lengthy, difficult, the content, because it's got a lot of new concepts that you are not used to maybe, but make sure you understand each question very well. Now, good luck with your examination. Just remember, always be prepared by planning ahead and do not try to do all on the last minute.